Hello, you're watching Sky News. We've got the press preview for you in a moment, taking a look at Sunday's front pages. But first, our top stories. And a ceasefire has been agreed between India and Pakistan, but with both sides accusing the other of violating the truce. European leaders, including Sir Keir Starmer, have threatened Vladimir Putin with fresh sanctions if Russia fails to comply with an unconditional 30-day ceasefire. And police are investigating an alleged attack on a prison officer at HMP Belmarsh by the Southport triple murderer Axel Rudikumar. A very good evening. You're watching the press preview. It is our first look at tomorrow's front pages as they come into us here at Sky. And tonight we'll be checking out those headlines with Editor-in-Chief for nationalworld.com, Nancy Fielder, and broadcaster and financial analyst, Albie Amankona. Great to see you both. We shall chat in a moment. Good evening. Let's have a look then at some of those front pages, starting with the Mail on Sunday. Leading on the government's migration crackdown, their headline, "Commit any crime and you're out, migrants to be warned." Sliding in the Express, also focusing on immigration, reporting on incoming government plans to make it harder for lawyers to prevent deportations. While the Sunday Times follows in a similar vein, focusing on the supposed riches of a businessman providing housing to migrants. While the Telegraph writes about a retired special constable who was arrested by Kent police for a social media post warning about anti-Semitism in Britain, sparking concerns about free speech. Tomorrow's Observer has a picture with members of Donald Trump's family with the words "New Age of Corruption." The Sun on Sunday leads with an exclusive interview with the actor and TV host Danny Dyer, who says he spent much of his time on the set of EastEnders high on prescription drugs. And the Mirror has a feature on Meghan Markle's father, discussing his life in the Philippines with his son. And we're joined tonight by Nancy Fielder and Albie Amankona. Lots to discuss. Nice to see you both on this very lovely evening. It's been a lovely day today, hasn't it? Nice and sunny. Let's start, shall we, Nancy, with the front of the Mail. And in fact, a lot of the front page is leading on immigration.
That's right. A lot of the front pages are looking at what has been billed as Labour's comeback, Labour's kicking reform after they've been given an absolute hammering in the elections. It's about getting tough, which I feel like we've heard about immigration for so many years now from both sides of the political debate. But this particular angle is that migrants who commit any crime will be kicked out of the country. They won't be allowed to stay. So at the minute, if you're put behind bars, if you're given a year behind bars, then you're considered for being deported. This is any crime at all, and the system will kick in. The government will be alerted and you may well be forced to leave the country. It is different. It is a crackdown. Whether it will make much difference to the actual figures remains to be seen, and how far it will be taken. But I think people generally agree that we don't want people to come into our country. Nobody wants people to come into the country and commit crimes.
Absolutely not. And I think a lot of people, I was one of them, would be quite shocked to find out that actually, at the moment, you can come to this country as an immigrant, commit a crime, and then not be deported. I was actually quite surprised when I was reading this article that this wasn't something that was already brought in by the previous Conservative government, who talked very tough on immigration. But if we actually look at the record of the Conservative Party in immigration actually trebled under them. So you just sort of think to yourself, well, what were they doing when they were in power? And lots of the newspapers are leading on this story, the Mail, the Sunday Express. And essentially what's going to be happening next week is there's going to be a white paper on immigration, which the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, is going to be talking about. A whole raft of measures that are going to be hopefully introduced to bring immigration down, increasing how well migrants have to speak English in order to get a work visa. At the moment, you've got to be able to speak GCSE English. They're going to up that to A-level English. There's also talk of them taking a longer time to get indefinite leave to remain, so increasing that from 5 years to 10 years. So there's a whole raft of immigration policies in order to bring down those really quite historic immigration numbers that we got last year, nearly 1 million, down to something more manageable. OK, front page of the Sunday Express as well then, Nancy, new crackdown on immigration, lawyers abusing the system, taking a different angle.
Yeah, so again, This is kind of focusing on people aren't very keen on lawyers anyway, are they? But people hate the idea of lawyers being able to sort of manipulate, and if you've got the right lawyer, you can stay. It doesn't matter what you've done wrong. It doesn't matter where you've come from, whether you should be here or not. And so I think it's common sense to make sure that lawyers aren't able to manipulate it and to use this to kick back against Nigel Farage. But it does concern me, the whole debate about immigration and migrants is just balled up into one big thing. There's little talk about sort of refugees and what we're doing to protect those and the people who actually really need to be here and who we should be helping. There's also little talk about if we're kicking people out, who's going to do the jobs that have been done by many people who weren't born in this country. I think there were huge issues that we're not talking about as Keir Starmer tries to mimic Nigel Farage, all those votes that have been whipped up by political arguments around we don't really want those people in our country.
Well, certainly, I mean, it is a big issue for many people on the doorstep, isn't it? We heard that in the run-up to the local elections, that many people do feel that this government, who've been in power for nearly a year now, 10 months or so, perhaps haven't got a handle on the immigration issue. And there's only so long you can sort of say, well, we inherited a bad scenario from the previous government. Well, and Nigel Farage is going to say, well, all these policies are OK, but they're still just tinkering around the edges.
I think what Nigel Farage is capitalising on is the fact that the British people have voted time and time again for a party that said they were going to lower immigration, and actually what we've seen is quite the opposite. Brexit ultimately was a vote for lower immigration. The 2019 election was a vote for lower immigration. The 2010 election, David Cameron said he was going to get immigration to the tens of thousands. It's now nearly 1 million. That's not happened. So Nigel Farage is riding on the wave of a number of governments of multiple different parties who have not delivered on their pledge to reduce migration. Now, what this immigration lawyer crackdown is actually about something quite specific. It's about the right to family life that some migrants, criminals, have been using in order to stop themselves getting deported because of things around the fact that they don't want the law stops them from being away from their children. There was a crazy story about a family not being able to be deported because the child didn't like foreign chicken nuggets. That is what this specific measure is trying to tackle. But I think it's quite an extreme measure, actually, for the Labour Party to be taking, because this is definitely out of the hymn sheet of people like Suella Braverman and Nigel Farage.
But this is never going to... They're not even pretending they're going to cut down on the numbers of people coming in here with these. This is dealing with people who are already here, which, as you say, the numbers are quite staggering. And it's very easy to sit on the sidelines, as Labour saw. They can promise what they want when they're not in power. As you say, nearly a year and nothing's really changed. In fact, the figures are going the wrong way. Very easy for Nigel Farage to say he's got the answers, because when are we actually going to see what he has to do? How's he going to run the local councils? Let's see what the answers are. We can all criticise from afar, can't we?
Yeah, I mean, there are going to be more details on Monday. I mean, from what you've read so far, do you think that these proposals, these ideas are bold enough?
No, I don't think these are going to win back people who've gone from Labour to Reform. I'm not sure what they can do, to be honest, to tackle this, because unless people really need to see change and feel change, don't they? And actually, immigration is such a difficult one to tackle, because how are you actually seriously going to get down the numbers of the people who are already here? They can't even stop the boats coming across the channel, it seems, which seems to me quite a simple thing to stop compared to all the other many problems.
Have you got a solution for that? Because
well, people on boats, it's easier than... Well, perhaps not, but I mean, you could work better with France, couldn't you? We could have stronger friendships that might tackle it. But I just think it's such a massive issue, and unless people see things with their own eyes, all they're hearing is noise, and this is going to be an election vote, winner or loser, for a very long time.
And Albie, people read headlines like this in the Sunday Times, and understandably, you can see people sort of rolling their eyes, can't you? Throwing their hands up in the air. Asylum Hotel King becomes a billionaire. This is a businessman who has made a huge amount of money from housing migrants.
So this is Graham King, 58. He's the founder of a housing company called Clear Springs Ready Homes, which has a government contract to basically house migrants. And he is going to be appearing on the Sunday Times Rich List for the very first time. I think that's out next week. And his wealth this year has increased by 35%, specifically because of the increase in immigration that's happened and the number of migrants that he's now housing at the homes that he owns with his property company. Now, a lot of people will be thinking, goodness gracious me, how can it be possible that the government is making a man a billionaire because of the migrant crisis, and I'm sure they will be absolutely frothing at the mouth over it. I'm angry about it.
And I think in terms of what can be done to stop this, there's a really interesting line. The backlog in processing asylum claims has led to an estimated 38... I can't say the number, it's so big. 38,000 asylum seekers have been housed in 222 hotels. Why is it so slow to deal with the problem? When there's an individual problem like that, why can't we move them through the system quicker? That can't be that difficult to solve, yet it's been a problem for the Conservatives, it's a problem for Labour. The issue itself is massive and I think is very difficult to tackle. There are individual things that you would think could be tackled quite quickly, yet they never seem to be.
No, I mean, it is speeding up, but clearly not fast enough. OK, let's squeeze in one more story before we go to a break. Albie, we're going to talk about the leaders meeting today in Kyiv. I'm just looking at that photograph. It's quite a photo, isn't it, on the front of the Sunday Telegraph?
It is quite a picture of the three leaders of France, Ukraine and the UK, Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron and Volodymyr Zelensky, that we can see up there, in what looks like a beautiful church-like building. But essentially, they're all in Kyiv this weekend, and they are basically giving Putin an ultimatum. They're saying to him, look, if you want a ceasefire, this is the ceasefire offer that's on the table. And if you don't accept it, the Western allies are going to send Ukraine more weapons, more arms, so that they can help with the fight against Russia. And also there's going to be tighter sanctions on Russia's economy and also other Russian industries. And Vladimir Putin is saying, look, I'm going to take some time to think about this over the weekend. He's going to think very deeply about it. But the Western allies are very clear. They're saying no ifs, no buts. If this ceasefire deal is not accepted, there are going to be consequences. I did wonder to myself when I was reading this, I was under the impression that Russia was already under as much sanction as possible. So it seems to me that there's something that we've not sanctioned that we could be sanctioning in the future.
Yeah, already a huge number of sanctions are in place. They're not deterring him from doing whatever he wants. Why will this make any difference? He just wants to string it out, doesn't he?
I don't think it will, and it's not even... He's kind of saying he'll think about it. There's no commitment at all. They had a phone conversation with Donald Trump, but we all know that it feels like Putin has been made stronger by Trump being in power and the many, many conversations they've already had. And I think from a human being perspective, just this week we've been remembering 80 years of VE Day, and yet here we are, we're actually living through a war now. It might not be impacting us other than prices and cost of living, etc., but there are people dying every day in parts of the world, and we do need to do more. And I don't know what they plan other than threatening him and him kind of laughing at us, but something does have to be done to protect human life.
Yeah.
We're not meant to be here 80 years later, are we?
Very depressing, isn't it? That photograph taken inside St Sophia Cathedral, rather beautiful, isn't it? OK, thank you both for the moment. We're going to take a quick break. After that, this in the Mirror, Meghan's dad's new life, a world away from hers. Find out more about that and more after this short break.
It's like a football final with only one team on the pitch. This isn't just a call to vote, but a call to remember. The freedom fought for by the African National Congress.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa.
A cyclone and 2 burst dams wiped out hundreds of generational homes.
This was the second dam that the floodwaters hit before it tore into Derna. We are in the heart of Nairobi, and we're watching as protesters were heavily tear gassed.
The sheer fearlessness and persistence of these guys is astonishing.
We help you understand the world with us. I remember going into the iconic Durman market in the heart of Sudan's capital for the first time since the war started. And this is what's left of it. Bullet holes through buildings, shelled balconies, bullet cases on the floor. I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories and the lives of millions of people. This is insane. This was a bustling residential area. So many friends who lived here. My most memorable interview was with a 15-year-old boy who'd survived being stranded on a migrant boat on its way from Senegal to the Canary Islands.
After 13 days, our food, water and fuel supply ran out.
I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky News.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
A show of military might and menace. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Have a quick word for Sky News. Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine? American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's futures.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Welcome back. Part two of the press preview. Albie and Nancy still with me. Let's have a look at the front of the Sunday Times. Albie, do you want to go first with this? Supermax, our worst prisoners.
Yes, so this is a story on the front page of the Times, and it's essentially a plan that people have come up with to house Britain's most dangerous prisoners in a US-style supermax prison with no contact with other inmates, no kettles, no cooking facilities. This, of course, comes after reports that we heard of the Southport triple murderer Axel Rudikbana, who was alleged to have thrown, I believe, some boiling water over a prison officer earlier on this week. Of course, about a month ago, Hashim Abedi, who was involved in the Manchester Arena attack, also managed to injure some prison officers with something that he got from a prison kitchen. I think he injured 3 prison officers. And it's a conversation about what do we actually do with these really quite high-risk prisoners once they're already in prison. Perhaps they're serving a life sentence. There's not much more that you can do in terms of punishment legally, but how is it that you can stop them causing further harm? Of course, one of the things that a lot of people are talking about, perhaps bringing back the death penalty. This has certainly tested my opposition to the death penalty, but I think this idea of putting our worst prisoners in a super maximum security prison, I think might be a neat way out of it.
Well, certainly a lot of our prisons are out of date, aren't they, and not capable of doing the job that they're needed for today. But that's down to investment, isn't it?
It is, and they're not big enough. There aren't enough prisons, are there? We know there's a massive problem with the prison population and it's growing. I think most people would be shocked and horrified that a crackdown on our worst killers involves things like taking kettles and cooking facilities away from them. I think still people think that actually if you go to prison, it's meant to be absolutely awful if you've done an awful crime. I really will never believe in the death penalty, but I don't believe that they should be given basic rights like being able to make a cup of tea. It just doesn't sit right with me. And I think I'm a massive believer in we need to put more investment in rehabilitating people because there's
But these people are not going to be
absolutely
rehabilitated.
No, absolutely. I don't believe for a minute that these people could be rehabilitated, but I think we need different levels. I think we really need to reform the whole prison system, make sure that people who are going to come out after a short amount of time don't reoffend, and that people like this are treated in the way they deserve to be treated, which is with no respect.
And also prison officers need to know that they can go to work and be safe. They shouldn't be going into work fearful every day.
My cousin is a prison officer, and some of the stories that my cousin has told me, honestly, it's absolutely terrifying. I worry about my cousin going to work, and then I read stories like this, and I just think, well, how is it that we're giving prisoners who have murdered 3 children in cold blood access to a kettle which they can then go and harm a prison officer with. How can that possibly be right? It seems like a complete dereliction of common sense that these people would be given access to materials and utensils that they could cause harm to other people with.
And I don't think most people, none of us would think that that would be the case anyway. That's what's so bizarre about it.
Yeah, Mark Fairhurst, National Chairman of the Prison Officers Association, quoted here, the authorities need to act, he says, before there is a tragedy. More on that in the Sunday Times. Let's move on to the Sunday Express. Plea to Prime Minister from our top stars. This is all about AI because it is, well, it's changing so much, but changing the music industry.
It is, and it's learning very, very quickly. But actually, it's only learning from the creativity of people like Dua Lipa, who is one of many people who say, well, actually, all it does is read my music, it reads the words I've created, and then it makes its own. It's not actually original as such. They don't make any money from it. So the people with the skills and the talent in 5, well, maybe in a year, 5, 10 years' time, won't be making the money. It will be a robot. But the robot has been taught by everything that they do because it can access. It's a very similar problem in journalism. The AI doesn't actually know anything, does it? It's sucked it all from the people who should earn the creative rights and yet don't. So it is an interesting debate, and I think it's going to keep on going with more and more famous names and all power to their elbow.
Interesting hearing from Moby on Sky News today saying that, I mean, he's taking a very different approach. He's saying everybody can have access to my music, and if people want to use AI to recreate new art forms with what I've created, that's fine. But, of course, he's not going to make any money out of that. He's going to lose money.
Yes, I think Moby was talking about the fact that he has a house, he has a car, he has everything he needs. So he doesn't feel like he wants to work for money anymore. He wants to work for some sort of higher purpose. Now, we can talk about stars like Moby and Dua Lipa, but the majority of the music industry is not Moby and Dua Lipa. It's people who are literally make money off royalties, and that is what they use to live. But I suppose the other argument to what Nancy had just said is that, well, actually, isn't that just how people make music anyway? People get influenced by different influences and then make up their own sound, and then they become a new artist. How many artists have drawn influence from Madonna, for example? You know, she doesn't get royalties for every Beyoncé song or every Britney Spears song, but they draw influences from that. So I think there's a delicate balance that regulators are going to have to balance here between how is it that we can create an environment in the UK which is conducive to artistic creativity, and also an environment in the UK which is conducive to AI companies wanting to set up here so that we can all reap the benefits of AI.
Really good question.
That's the question.
It is, you're right. We've just got 30 seconds left, Nancy. Front page in the Mirror. Meghan's dad now lives in the Philippines.
Yeah, it seems these dads and these couples can't get their act together. So here's Meghan's dad, apparently living a terrible life, £500 a month rent he pays with his son. Is clearly having another go at Meghan, saying why doesn't she reach out to him? The same could be asked as why the King doesn't reach out to Prince Harry, but hey-ho, politics and the way newspapers twist stories comes round to us every day, doesn't it?
Yeah, OK. Thank you both very much for the moment. We'll see you again in half an hour. Time now, though, for a look at the weather.